How many of you feel guilty asking for help? I see you, girl. And I am right there along with you. In this week's episode, we take a look at the fact that women are actually meant to do things in sisterhood and in villages. And we take a look at the shame and guilt that go along with asking for help.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show.
Welcome back to another episode of Reproductive Rebel Podcast. I have had a huge theme coming up for me in the last few weeks, and it felt like a really great topic for a podcast because I know so many of us struggle with this, myself included. So, if you've been following the show, you know I've had a baby. If you didn't know that, go back a few episodes. I tell my birth story around my rainbow baby who came into the world at the beginning of October. And I have always been part of other people's villages. So, as a practitioner, I want to lend a helping hand wherever I possibly can. And one thing that I personally have developed a very interesting relationship with, even though I talk to my clients about it and there's more and more conversation around it, but we really struggle collectively as women with asking for help. And I just felt really called to dive into this. So if you missed the episode that I did with Angela Castrino called A Woman's Worth, I would highly recommend you go back and listen to that one this season. It was early this season. And it was a fantastic conversation around self-care and feeling guilty for taking time to rest and stop and things like that. Well, I'm gonna take that a step further. I am sitting here in my postpartum, and yes, I'm sitting here in my bed as I'm recording this. My daughter is rocking and loving on the little baby so that I can record this and he doesn't squawk. But listen to what I just said. My daughter is rocking the baby so that I can do this. Okay. It is really hard to ask for help. It's really hard to ask for help. I struggle with this, and I know so many of you struggle with this also. And so it felt very important since I am in this space where I am struggling real time with asking for help and honoring the call that my body is issuing to have more rest, that my stamina really isn't back to normal because I am still in the 4th trimester. It's easier right now for me to say, "Hey, I can't do this right now. Can you help me?" But how often do we do that? We now live in a world where our immediate family tends to not be as close as just up the street. Now, some of you that are the exception to this, but in general, with globalization, families are more flung all over the map. And proximity to immediate family is spread a lot thinner than it used to be. Even in neighborhoods, Like, I remember we lived in a neighborhood not all that long ago before we moved to where we are now, and I never got to know the neighbors across the street, which, if you look back 40 years ago, all of the moms on the street all watched everybody's kids, you know what I'm saying? And, like, if somebody was misbehaving, that parent shared with the parent, but they also parented, right? So, the burden of motherhood was a little more evenly distributed, and collectively, we could survive on a one-income household. And it wasn't forcing mothers out into the workforce in droves the way that it is today. Now, some families are fortunate that they can live off of one income, but whether mom has a desire to stay at home or she has a desire to work doesn't matter. The current economics are forcing women to work outside the home regardless of whether that's their heart's desire or not. That's a whole conversation for another day. But we have this insane expectation. And I say insane because we keep trying to do it day in and day out and telling ourselves nasty stories inside of our head about being a failure when we're trying to parent alone. We could even have the most supportive partner in the entire world and still be like you and your partner against the world, right? We need community. This idea of sisterhood and community and that it takes a village, it really does. And there are beautiful accounts out there like The Diary of an Honest Mom and Mom Well, and maybe I can get one of these amazing individuals on the show at some point. I have reached out and fingers crossed. Send good juju, guys. I would love to have one of them come on the show and talk about these things because I love how their social media accounts are just very real looks at the invisible load of being a mom and how isolating it can feel sometimes. And in this world where we have the ability to connect through social media and technology at our fingertips, in general, we are more isolated than we've ever been at any point in history. Mental health is suffering, her physical health is suffering. She's trying to be a full-time stay-at-home mom and a full-time employee, and it's not feasible. And yet we still keep trying, and we still keep demanding perfection of ourselves and demanding that our houses can look like a Better Homes and Gardens magazine, while that drive for perfectionism and being the good girl and being perfect and all of these things is literally fucking killing us. It's killing us. We have more autoimmune conditions today than ever. There is a holistic psychologist that I follow, and I think she's brilliant too. And she has talked about how holding on to perfectionism and this unhealthy expectation of being perfect and doing everything right is why women collectively suffer from more autoimmune conditions than men and why we collectively are sicker. We are not meant to do this alone. We need the social part of community. We need to share the mental burden because keeping an eye on your child 24/7 is a huge job. I remember when I was a single mom with my now 13-year-old daughter, she was a normal, busy toddler. And I used to feel so wiped out at the end of the day because she was constantly moving. I didn't even have a partner to help divide that load with. I lived away from my immediate family unit. And because of a job and, again, past life, right? But I was constantly on. You know that energy where, like, you feel like you're on and you're, like, hyper focused almost, and then when people leave and you're not entertaining and things like that, you feel like you can relax back into the comfort of your space. Like, that on energy is what I lived in, and then I would go and visit my parents, and having 2 other adults in the house to keep an eye on her, and if she disappeared into another room, they likely were in that other room and could make sure she wasn't getting into things so that I could stop for 5 minutes. I remember feeling so overwhelmingly exhausted because I finally felt like I could let down and I could relax and my nervous system wasn't on screech because I was trying really hard to make sure that she was healthy and not getting into something that was gonna hurt her. So, right now, I have an infant, and the fact that I have a beautiful community of women who have brought me food and brought me sisterhood. Some of them have just come and spent an hour, hour and a half with me, not too long to make me tired, but enough to make me not feel alone as I've been confined for the first 30 days in my bed. I have had practitioners come to the house to care for me and my son. My 13-year-old daughter is a beautiful little mama, and she loves to hold her brother and walk around with him and entertain him. And this current episode of this podcast is brought to you by the magic of my 13-year-old daughter because she is currently taking with or he's napping. She's laying next to him and taking pictures of him because she thinks he's adorable, but she is currently supervising a nap with him so that if he made any little squawky sounds, it didn't get caught in this recording. So it takes a village, especially when you're in postpartum, to make sure that you eat, to have somebody to hand the baby off to so you can go to the bathroom. When you're a mom, having an extra set of eyes to watch roaming toddlers or even teenagers. When you have mom friends who are out driving and see your teenager driving somewhere or parked somewhere and looking like they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing, and then they call you and go, "Hey, do you know where so and so is?" Like, we really need a village. And in a world where we are connected more than ever before, and I say this as a parent who feels like they are constantly fighting technology to keep their kids safe, it takes a village. In today's health food market, it's hard to distinguish truly nutritious products from those that only claim to be. Despite their healthy labels, many ingredients are not organic. They're overly processed and contain synthetic nutrients, seed oils, sugars, sugar alcohols, or other potentially harmful additives. Paleo Valley stands out by committing to genuine, whole food ingredients that support your health as nature intended. I recommend Paleo Valley products to my clients because their prioritization of quality over cost and ensuring that their products are organic and free from unnecessary additives makes me feel good about suggesting that my clients use them. As somebody who uses food as medicine, quality is absolutely paramount in order to get the results that we're looking for. And I love using and suggesting that my clients use Paleo Valley products because their approach is not just about offering more nourishing products, it's about integrity, transparency, and commitment to overall well being. All of those themes jive with me. So if you are looking for beef liver, which is the thing I recommend the most often to my female clients, look no further than Paleo Valley. Link is in the show notes. And now back to the show. Now, I keep saying that phrase and it's so easy for me to say, but that concept brings up a lot of emotions for us. For many of us, it makes us feel shame and guilt. We feel guilty that we have to bother somebody and ask for help. I'm guilty of this. I hate inconveniencing people. Many of us feel that way. We don't want to bother somebody. We know how busy everyone is. We respect the fact that it's super busy. I have a beautiful human in my group of friends who is a super mom and she does it all. And she offers to come bring me food and things like that and is dealing with her own health stuff. And I feel guilty asking this amazing human being for help because she's already doing so much and with so little support herself. So many of us like recognize this game, right? So we see each other as so busy and so spread thin that we don't want to inconvenience anybody else by asking for help. And that makes us feel extreme guilt. We feel shame because we feel like we should be able to fucking do it all ourselves. But the reality of it is, our bodies aren't built to hold the whole house up by ourselves. They're just not. And the more we try to be perfect, the more we try to hold it all together ourselves, the more we don't ask for help, the harder it is for our bodies to heal, the harder it is for our nervous systems to be regulated, the harder it is for us to survive this wild ride called life. And we spend all of our time in the day to day, and we don't make time for the freedom to truly live. And that's not what life is all about. We are here to live. We're not here to make sure that our house is neat as a pin because that takes all of our time. And then we don't have time to actually go play with our kids. Even if you don't have kids, think about all the things that you're like, I haven't had time to do this. I haven't had time to do that. I've been busy. I haven't had time to. We're not supposed to be in isolation. We are meant to exist in sisterhood and in a village. And especially women. Women are socialized for communities. And we've lost so much of this. There was this concept of the gossip. I was reading this beautiful book about the rite of the passage of childbirth into matrescence. And the group of women you were surrounded with when you birthed was called a gossip. And I thought that was so cool because for a long time, the custom around birth was that it was a woman's only activity. And while I couldn't imagine birthing my son without my husband's support, and he was such an amazing birth partner, at the same time, I really love this energy of women supporting women and women having each other's back during such a vulnerable time as birth. But it's the same thing for all these other stages we go through too. Postpartum, we need community. Part of the reason we get so fucking angry during perimenopause is because we feel isolated and alone. And we're getting to a point in our life where we start to resent the fact that we are doing it all by ourselves. We start wanting to go on more girls' trips and do things with our female friends because we have been in isolation during our childbearing years for so long. We miss our friends. This is a normal energy to change during perimenopause and menopause and wanting to be more in the world because your chi, your vital life force, is no longer in service of bringing life into the world. It is to put life into your life. This is a normal social transition that happens during this phase of life. It does feed why we're so angry collectively because we've allowed ourselves. And some people may challenge that wording of allowing, but really we have. We have not set healthy boundaries so that we have allowed mission creep to happen. And because we haven't set these healthy boundaries for I need rest now, I need my social community, I need help, and we've done it for so many years, we're depleted, our hormones are imbalanced, and we're angry at the whole world that we're in this position. And that all of the sacrifices, because martyrdom is a really big narrative in motherhood these days. We have made all of these sacrifices and nobody recognizes it. And now I feel like shit for nothing. That's where people get by the time they hit perimenopause into menopause. And I remember I had a client a few years ago who reached out to me and she was like, "I don't know if I'm, in menopause or not." And we were talking about her cycles and, there was nothing irregular yet. She wasn't claiming that she was starting to see some of the social changes. And she's like, "I don't know that if I'm in menopause, but I would really like to work with you so that, that transition is easier when I get there." Literally a month later, we get on a call and to do another follow-up, and she goes, "So I think I know what you're talking about in terms of the social changes." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Well," she goes, "My husband always leaves his shoes at the bottom of the stairs at the end of the day, and because I go to bed before him, I pick the shoes up and I take them upstairs with me every single day for 20 some odd years." She goes, "One day last week, Adrian," she goes, "I felt like I was split personality." She said, "I saw those shoes at the bottom of the stairs and I lost it. I started screaming at him and I had this out of body moment where part of my brain was like, 'What are you doing? It's not a big deal.' And then everything coming out of my mouth was, 'Are your hands broken? Why am I the only one that can carry these shoes up the stairs?'" And I went upstairs and I slammed the door. And then I sat on our bed and I cried because I was embarrassed that I acted like that. Part of me was totally at a loss. Like, where did that come from? And part of me was like, I have been doing this for 20 years. He can carry his own damn shoes. She goes, "Is that what you're talking about?" And I'm like, "Yes, that is exactly what I was talking about." So these things that we just do, this could be loading the dishwasher, this could be shoes at the bottom of the stairs. It doesn't matter. We just do these things. And eventually we start really starting to resent the fact that we have capable people in our house that have two able hands that can do these things. And yet the burden still continues to fall on us and it makes us really angry. That kind of anger is a buildup over many years. And it starts with not tapping into a village or establishing a village. I discovered that there are certain conversations that I just have to have with girlfriends and I can't have with my husband. And it's not that I can't talk to him about that stuff, but he tries to solve my problems for me. In some cases, I want him to do that. And in other cases, I just want him to listen. I don't want you to try to solve my problem. Just listen so that you know what's going on in my life. And I realized that there are certain spaces, i.e., I need to have these conversations with women that I am heard and I am seen and I am witnessed. And then I feel like a well adjusted human being when I have the conversation with my husband. If he is the only person that I'm trying to have this conversation with, I often get frustrated because I don't feel seen and I don't feel heard because he's busy trying to solve. And that's not a ding at him. It's the fact that men are wired to do this. They are wired to solve problems. In community with other women, we hold space, we listen, we witness, we are empathetic. We understand what other women are going through. Sometimes it's really hard for our male counterparts to understand that they don't have to fix and solve all the things. My husband's so much better than he used to be. He used to really kind of struggle with this concept because he thought I wanted him to fix things, and he used to get kind of irritated with me. And I had to start becoming really intentional about saying, "No, I'm not asking anything of you. I just need you to listen to me for a little while. And when I finish unloading my verbal diarrhea, I'm going to feel better, and you're still not gonna have to solve anything unless I ask you." And because I can advocate and set that healthy boundary now, that dynamic has gotten significantly better, but I still have certain types of conversations that I really can only have with girlfriends. And that's not a bad thing. It is because women are socialized to do things in villages and sisterhood. So I record all of this to say that there is no shame in the desire to have community, the desire for sisterhood, and the need to be part of a village. There is no shame. We are actually social creatures and socialized to need this kind of support in order to thrive. And this sisterhood pours back into us and we pour into each of them. By doing that, we share the energetic burden. It no longer solely falls on us. It makes us less sick. When we feel seen and we feel heard, it does amazing things for our nervous system. And an hour having a cup of tea with a girlfriend can be the difference between a migraine headache at the end of the day and not yelling at your kids when you get home. It's really like, I know that sounds wild, but it's really true. So I invite you to really reflect on who is part of your village and how can you all support one another to distribute the burden, because it really does take a village. And we have been raised, when I say we, I am in my 40s, women who find themselves in this like 30 to 50 range, right? We were raised that we needed to work like men. We needed to go to college to be successful. We could do all of these things, be a professional badass and a mom and all of these things without any help. And to ask for help was a weakness because we were expected to be perfect and not complain and be outspoken around the discomfort of unreasonable expectations. But let's face it, we're sick. Collectively, we are sick. I also am a victim of an autoimmune condition as a result of this need for perfectionism and being a good girl. I've lived it firsthand, and so many of us do. So there is no shame in asking for help. And if we start normalizing asking for help, doing things in community, shaking off that feeling of, I shouldn't be asking right now, I'm just adding one more thing to their plate. Let them make that decision. If it's too much for them in the moment, they will say so. Don't project your feelings on them, your fears and worries on them. If anything, they'll probably be honored you asked them. Just make sure that this is reciprocal and you show up for them when they ask too. There is no shame and guilt in the fact that we are built and hardwired to do things in villages. You are doing great. I see you in all of your effort and all of your hard work, and it is okay to rest and it is okay to ask for help.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.